Good morning. I am working out here in my shop today, and I am going to tackle a couple of projects that I've been procrastinating for a long time. I built this fuel tank for Dig Dug. I need to get it painted before I can install it in the truck. I've also got the bumper on the XJ that hasn't been painted yet, so I figured I'll just paint both of these at the same time. I took the fuel tank out of Dig Dug when we built the rock sliders, so we got to push this out. This bumper saw a couple of rainstorms, but it looks like it's in pretty good shape. There's not too much rust on it, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that off. We'll get the winch removed and then start prepping these things for paint. We'll get the winch pulled off of this and that'll lighten it up a whole bunch. It'll be easier to move around so we can get it cleaned up and painted. I've got everything removed and stripped down. There's my bumper. Here's my tank. I think the very next thing I'm gonna do is tape off this tank because I don't want anything going in there. I'm also gonna scrub these down with cleaner and degreaser. So I'm gonna block that off so the tank stays clean inside. I did some cleaning on both of these when I built them, but I've got a whole bunch more I need to do to make them ready for paint. I'm gonna hit them with sandpaper and with Scotch-Brite and get rid of all the sharp edges, the dingleberries, the burrs, everything that's gonna pop out as soon as I get paint on them. So I'll start doing that. That is enough sanding and grinding. I'm gonna use the POR15 degreaser and their metal prep. I'll scrub it in really good with Scotch-Brite and then I'll rinse it all off with water and then we should be ready to paint. All right, I'm all done with the degreaser. That stuff was really potent and it was stripping off mill scale and everything. So these are pretty clean. Now I'm gonna go to the metal prep, and that etches or applies some kind of coating on the steel. All I know is I gotta spray it on and then wait like 20 minutes and then I'll rinse it all off with water. I've got these all dried off now and they are ready for paint. Let me show you what they look like. I rinsed off this metal prep outside with the hose, and then I dried everything off really good, and now they have this kind of white rusty patina on them, which the instructions say is totally normal. So I think these are ready for paint. Here's my crazy idea. On this back set of arms here, I'm gonna hang a bunch of plastic off of it and make like a wall, a giant curtain, and that should block all of the overspray. And then on this set of arms right here, I'm gonna hang the fuel tank on one side and the bumper on the other, and I should be able to get all around them and get the whole thing painted up. Now I've had questions in the past like, hey, why didn't you use your lift to lift up that toolbox? This lift will only go 6 feet high, or like 6 feet 2, something like that. It doesn't go way up in the air, and that's because if it did, you would smash cars up into the ceilings. So 6 feet seems to be a great height for working on cars, but lifts don't make a really good crane. So having a crane in my shop would be awesome, and that's a great future project, but lifting things way up in the air, like a toolbox or an engine, they just don't work that good. But for a paint booth, I think it's gonna be perfect. I built my paint booth and it's really turning out to be more like a paint wall, but I still think it's gonna work. I got the wall in the back, I got these arms covered. I just have to figure out how to hang the bumper and the fuel tank from these arms. So I'm gonna figure that out right now. My solution is paracord because that's what I have. So I'm gonna try and tie off to these and tie it up to here. And just see if it'll hang. I'm using a square knot. Left over right, right over left. Let's see how that does. Yes, that looks perfect. Check that out. All right, I'm really happy with that. Now we gotta hang the fuel tank. Woo! Oh yeah, look at the balance. Same plan, I'm gonna use paracord, tie off here and just pick it up. I think this is gonna work. I've got a little patchwork to do in all of the taping off, so I don't wanna get any paint on the beautiful Challenger lift. I'm gonna do that really quick, maybe even put one down on the floor, and we should be ready to go. Today is paint day, and I think I've got everything all set up here. I'm gonna be using the POR15 base coat and then a 2K urethane on top of that. And I want the fuel tank to be gray and the final coat on the bumper to be black. So I'm gonna do just the opposite for the base coats so I can see if the final coat finishes good. Also, the POR15, I've heard paints really, really good with a brush. It just wets out really smooth and you can't see the brush strokes. So I'm gonna do the base coat with a brush and then try to spray the top coat on these. So I'll be channeling my inner Robbie Layton to do my very best here. It is like 108 degrees here today and it is super dry. And these paints actually cure with moisture in the air. So I'm gonna be using some accelerator in these paints to try and increase the dry time so that I can recoat these quicker and get this all done today. You only need a tiny bit of this accelerator to do this whole entire container. So I did the math and it looks like this half teaspoon will do this container. No, I did not take this out of the kitchen. I learned my lesson about doing that. I've heard this spreads really far, but I have no idea. So I mixed up a pretty good amount. If I have too much left over for the bumper, I'll just move on and start putting this on the fuel tank. I'm gonna do 2 coats of base on each, so it doesn't really matter if there's some gray underneath the bottom layer on the fuel tank. That went pretty good. I've now got a coat of paint on everything. The upside down work over on this bumper was way messier than I thought it would be, but we've got it all done. I ended up using gray on both of these because the paint went way further than I thought it would, so I had plenty. So I'm just gonna let this dry for a couple of hours. I'll come back in here and check on it in a little bit. So I've been coming out here checking on these to see if they are ready for another coat. And right now they are dry to the touch, but if I push really hard, I can leave a fingerprint. So I think that's the perfect amount of dry. I'm gonna mix up another batch and start painting again. I made a smaller batch this time because I'm just gonna paint the fuel tank in black and I'll make another batch of gray for the bumper. I used about the same ratio of accelerator because the dry time seemed pretty good. So I'm ready to paint the fuel tank now. All right, I'm gonna mix up one more small batch of gray and then go do another coat on the bumper. These are all dry now, and I was just about to mix up some paint and the power went out. Lights are out, air compressor's out, everything. So I'm really glad I hadn't mixed it yet, and we'll just let these keep drying, and as soon as it kicks back on, I can get to work. The power is back on, break time is over. So I got some unexpected results from my paint. The paint came out really orange peel, like almost like a textured look. But on this bumper, I actually really like it. The texture is really uniform, so I'm just gonna run with it. I'm gonna take this thing down and install it. On the fuel tank, that one's not quite as good. It came out kind of splotchy, so I'm gonna sand that down really good and then try to get a nice smooth final coat. I have a lot to learn about setting up paint guns. Fortunately, I have somebody coming by this afternoon to help me with that. Right now, I'm just gonna get sanded on this and get it ready for its next coat. In like 3rd or 4th grade, I had an art teacher named Mrs. Sears, and if you messed up on a project and tried to get another one, like another piece of paper or something, she'd always just tell you, mess up, fix up. That's something I've told my kids their whole lives is mess up, fix up. So I feel like right now, I'm doing a mess up, fix up. That's okay, I've done a lot of them. All right, I've got my neighbor Chuck here with me to help me out because I'm obviously in over my head. And this guy is a master of all things painting. He actually paints for like movies, movie sets, movies you've seen. So he paints stuff all the time for Hollywood, lives around the corner from me. Chuck's awesome, and he's gonna help me lay down a smooth layer of paint so this thing will actually look good. Chuck went crazy with the sander. He would not tolerate any drips. I think if we clean this up now, it'll be ready for paint. So I'm talking to Chuck here about what went wrong with the way I did it, and he's saying I probably painted over the top too soon.
We mess it up with paint, we can fix it with paint. That's like the common knowledge.
Perfect. So he's over here mixing up a new batch, and he's gonna school me on how to lay this down nice and smooth.
I get the Yosemite Sam look every time I do that. We can look at that. That's still a little too thick for me. We can go up to 20% reducer. Let's just do a little bit. Because I think that the reducer is going to go a long way. Our tip on our gun is a 1.3. We should have like a 1.5. So this is a little bit smaller.
It's small, yeah.
So what I think we also should do is maybe thin it out a little bit
extra thin.
I think I can do a little bit more. There it is. Look at that.
I'm excited now. Like before I was just frustrated, but this thing's gonna be awesome. Chuck was a huge help. He got me all straightened out. This tank looks 1,000 times better. Thanks for coming over and helping, man.
Anytime.
So tomorrow this thing will get all set up and then I can go get it installed. So I let the paint dry overnight and I just came out here this morning to check on the tank and it looks beautiful. It's got a little bit of texture to it because this is like a really industrial heavy duty paint, but it's really uniform now and it looks great. Chuck is so awesome. Thank you, Chuck, for coming by and helping out. Now it's time to clean up the mess in here and get this stuff installed. I love how it dries in these cups. It's like a pancake. Let me show you the final finish on the tank. I'm gonna install the Jeep bumper first because I've done it before, so it should be pretty quick and easy. So I'll go ahead and pull that in here. Now it's time to install the Yankum Groove Fairlead. I really love these. I'll show you how it works in just a minute. All right, the bumper is all bolted up now and it's looking good. This is a good time too to show you how this fair lead works. So this fair lead allows you to get rid of the big metal hook on the end of your rope that can become a projectile if something breaks. So right now, this rope that came on the Badlands winch has a thimble on here. I'm gonna cut this off and weave in a loop on the end of my rope, and then it'll wrap around the edge of the fair lead. I can tighten it up and everything will be out of the way. I'll be ready to bash into the rocks. So now I've got my loop spliced in the end and I can just tuck it at the edge of the fair lead. I don't have a way to wind my winch back up because the controller's not hooked on yet. But you can see that this thing is ready to ram into the rocks and it's not gonna pinch the rope off. If you're interested in getting a groove fair lead or any of the Yankum Ropes products, you can use code TOMTOM at checkout for 10% off. The promo code and a link are in the description of this video. There it is, I got it all wound up. Nice and safe. All right, now it's time to get this thing out of here and start playing with this fuel tank. It's time now to figure out this fuel tank. So I'm gonna strip off all the tape and then I'm gonna get out the pump and the sender and the cap and start putting this whole thing together. I need to run out and grab some nylock nuts for these bolts that go through the fuel sender. I'm gonna pick up those, I'll be right back. I went and grabbed the nylocks, now we can put this together. Oh, shoot. So now it's time to hook up this fuel pump. I've got a return hose and I need to add this longer hose that'll go down to the actual pump part down here. This one won't reach the bottom of my tank. So I need to switch that out. And I think this right here is what I need to hook up to on the head side. Somehow I gotta get a little hose clamp way back up in there. Ah, there's a little hose clamp. All right, this is gonna come together. There we go. I just gotta figure out how to get in there to tighten it down. I need a tiny little wrench. I found a tiny little wrench. It's getting way back up in there. Okay, that side's looking good. Now I gotta figure out how long this thing needs to be so it can get to the very bottom of the tank and suck up every last bit of fuel. I've also got this fuel sock that I need to figure out how it goes on the bottom of the pump, and it looks like it can be clocked different directions. I gotta figure out exactly how this goes together, then I'll show you when I put it in. I want the sock to be diagonal. I want the pump to angle this way. Fuel pump goes here. I should probably take the plug out first. I only cut off like 1/4 of an inch of this tube. It's just barely long enough. So now I need to take this one off and switch it over. I'm gonna warm it up with a heat gun, then it should come loose. There it goes. Hose clamp first. Okay, this thing should be just the right height now. Should be the right angle, but I can twist it. Looking good. Okay, somehow I have to clamp these together, and I think there was a hose clamp in the box. Oh, I forgot a step. This whole thing's all put together now. It's time to stuff it into the tank and then tighten these screws on the top that'll turn the cams out and lock this thing into place. I'm angling it a little bit this way because the fuel lines are gonna route easier if they're over towards the middle of the truck. I think about right there looks right. See if I can get these to turn. All right, it should be locked in now, it won't come out. And I've just got to crank on these and it'll tighten up, and this big foam gasket here will seal any irregularities in the top of this tank. Everything is together now and it's ready to go into the truck. I've got this thing sitting in the bed now and I'm gonna bolt it down. I'm kinda gonna do a temporary install because I wanna get this truck out running again, but there's a lot of changes coming to this bed. So I'm gonna mark all the bolt holes and get this thing mounted in. I made an extension of my Sharpie so I can reach back there. Fuel tank is all bolted in now. I need to pick up some hardware and fittings to get it all plumbed and electrified, but I had a great time painting this thing. Thanks again to Chuck for helping out and for teaching me a few things, and thank you for watching. What's the biggest movie you've done?
The Lone Ranger
The Lone Ranger.
with Johnny Depp.
Yeah? Okay, that was big.
That's not that big.
What
Act of Valor. That was a good one.
Yeah?
Yeah,
All right.
that's a good one.
There you have it. You can check out a couple more videos right over here.